Thank you for joining us today. I'm David Magdale. Welcome to the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival produced by Visual Communications. And I'm one of the co-directors for the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, in charge of publicity and press for the festival. And today I am coming to you from downtown Los Angeles, California, and this is the land of the Chumash people. So we want to thank them for allowing us to be on their land. If you'd like to read the closed captions, we're dropping a link into the chat now. Click on that and it will bring you to a new window that will open with the audio transcript. We'd like to thank everyone for making this festival possible, especially the Academy of Motion Pictures Arts and Sciences, Sony Pictures Entertainment, Comcast, NBC Universal, California Arts Council, SAG-AFTRA Producers Industry Advancement and Cooperative Fund, the National Endowment for the Arts, and HBO and Warner Media. And a special thanks to all of our community partner organizations for their valuable work and continue to support visual communications. You know, we're at a great time for all of us as for our artists and our storytellers in the Asian American film world. We got so many more. This year we were just looking at in the documentary world for those documentaries by Asian Americans this year that could qualify for the Oscars. We counted 17 that were either directed or produced. So we're just so excited that, you know, this is a really great time. And today's talkback, or how we say fireside chat, is with director Richard Louie, first time feature film director, but y'all know him from his award-winning work as a journalist, earlier from CNN. Now he's on weekends on MSNBC. Sorry about that, MSNBC. And then he'll be joined in conversation with someone who's been a longtime friend of visual communications and definitely someone who inspires all of us to stay in entertainment and keep pushing. That's the amazing actress Tamlyn Tomita. So with that, let me just have both Tamlyn and Richard come in and turn on their cameras.
Hey, David.
Richard. Hey, Tamlyn. So we're really fortunate enough that we are at the film festival showing this sneak peek of Richard's directorial debut of this incredibly inspiring and moving documentary called Sky Blossom: Diaries of the Next Greatest Generation. You guys are all getting a first time. Nobody else has seen this. It's going to be opening in the virtual cinema next Friday. At the Laemmle here in LA, but it's, you know, you can go to the Laemmle Virtual Cinema and take a look at it there, or you can look at it here at the LA Asian Pacific Film Festival. So if you have friends that miss it, you can go there. I am going to move off of this. I will come in at the last 5 minutes to close out the session. And I just want to say this film festival this is I've been working with since 1997. But this year in like pandemic and what we're doing, it's just so incredible because people have been really coming in and participating. And we have this moment where we can all come together and be part of a community. And I think this is something that I think when we look back and like, what did you do in 2020 in COVID-19? We were all here together, still promoting our artwork, still supporting our storytellers such as Richard and being with our artists such as Tamlyn. So I want to say thank you for all of you who are in the audience today. And thank you to the Film Festival and everybody at Visual Communications for continuing to support our storytellers. So with that, have a great fireside chat, and I'll come back at 5 minutes before.
Thank you. Thank you so very much, David. And I'm going to turn the camera so you get the view of my fireplace. So it'll truly be a fireplace chat. Thank you, everybody, for joining us, for joining Richard, the first-time director of his beautiful documentary, Sky Blossom, and really thank you, each and every one of you, for taking the time to watch us chit-chat for a little while on a Friday afternoon after a Dodgers win. Sorry, San Francisco, NorCal Bay Boy.
Richard.
But we're just also thrilled, and we're so super proud, you know, that we get to watch your extraordinary film. And right off the bat, full disclosure, I had to watch it in bits because when the film festival sent me the link, I watched it and I just started bawling about half an hour in, and then I tried to watch the next 10-15 minutes the next night, which was the night before last. And then I said, just screw it. I got to do this, even though I know it's going to be a story that really moves and changes me. And I watched it twice last night just to make sure I knew all these kids, I knew all their parents, and I knew their stories. So congratulations for making such a beautiful documentary, especially on your first time out. And I'm going to start crying because I need to know because I know a little bit of your story personally as to why you're telling this. So, Rich, why did you choose this story? Why did you choose to go away from journalism and reading the little boxes of news and really diving in deep in telling these stories and exposing the vulnerabilities, the strengths, and the sacrifices and the heroism of all these young caregivers?
Tamlin, first of all, thanks for giving so much of your time and your heart to do this.
Ah,
I know
I
we've known
love
each
you.
other for.
I
I
love
love
you.
you
That's
too,
why.
and you've done so much. I know I've seen you every year stand up for our community in so many different ways. So I appreciate you doing this thing, which I know is this little film that could, and so thanks for taking the time. And of course, you know David very well. David has just been a fantastic mentor to me as I try to figure out what to do here and what this whole world is. A lot of the folks out here, especially for the film festival, the Los Angeles Asian Pacific American Film Festival. Thank you for doing this, and I know that there's a lot of folks that have been through this many a time. So for me, when I first started, it was a lot of learning on the job, but what drove me was about 7 or 8 years ago, as you know, my father's Alzheimer's started to take a turn, and I knew when he got diagnosed, it would mean a different life for me. So I work at 30 Rock in New York, and he lives in 16th Avenue in San Francisco. And so I talked to my boss to change my job to work part-time. But I also, when I walked into our office, I knew that I could be saying goodbye to this job that I, worked for over a decade, because you don't have part-time anchors. And so the amazing thing though, and this being in the arts too, front of camera and behind a camera, but front of camera, it's not like you get to choose the time that you get your time. Your time is the time they give you. And I fully respect that. But it was the time when I had to make that decision. I think when I made the decision that the story about people caring for other people without knowing it was something I wanted to talk about. So I said to all of the folks that had me talk about caring for somebody else, caring for my father, as I started to fly 500,000 miles a year to take care of my father, that I said, well, I want you to step up and help me do this film. And so they had to, because I leaned in. I wanted them to lean in too.
So, because there's two thrusts here that I want to attack. So, but because it's the foundation of why you did Sky Blossom, diving into caregiving for your father. And thank NBC and MSNBC and for your bosses who directly dictate how your life is going to be in terms of gaining that life work balance. Did you have a kind of a playbook as to how to take care of your father? Because knowing that there's a little bit of flying back and forth every week, what is your schedule like now? And what was it like, packing your bags or preparing your bags Thursday night to fly out Friday morning and then fly out Sunday night? What was that kind of day in, day out experience for ever how long of a period that you were able to maintain that schedule?
Yeah, I think the first 5 years I just knew
Wow.
it was
Wow.
okay. Then
Yeah.
the last two, I started to really feel it. It's more tired. It's just like slowing you down emotionally. You might be closer to spaces you don't generally show people.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to show you emotions. But that's not you, Tamlin. You give it all the time, which I love. But for me, it's like I'm laughing more. I'm also crying more. I spend special time with my father, and
Yeah,
it goes up and down.
the spectrum widens out for each individual when you're caring for people, whether or not it's your children, if you're lucky enough to have children, and or lucky enough to have your parents still with you, but in their in their advancing years, there are issues that we all need to be cognizant and careful about in giving more care for them.
On
Because
that
it is,
really quick,
yeah, go ahead, go ahead.
really on that note, because just you sparked an idea, Tamlin. On that, you know, it was something that I think I learned when I was living with my grandma in LA when I got my first job out of college, and she
Hmm.
could speak no she could speak no English, I could speak no Chinese, and so but we lived together, and it was a funny little thing, you know, grandson and grandma, and we'd laugh together. You know, I'd cook her food she hated, I'm sure. I found out what I used to cook her all the time she didn't like, but she didn't tell me until after she passed. She told my mom on the side, by the way,
She
she
loved
doesn't.
you. She
I
loved
know.
you. She was so proud that you were trying. Oh my God.
But exactly what happened was when she was like she was going to pass away in about 3 months. She had fallen. My sister comes down, and we're sitting next to my grandma, and my sister goes, you know, I really wish I could speak Chinese to talk to grandma. And I was like, well, I lived with grandma for 3 months. You don't need to talk sometimes. And
Hmm.
so I applied that lesson, I think, passively from the back of my brain with my dad. My dad can't walk or talk or eat anymore, but we
Mm.
still talk when I go
Hmm.
visit him.
Hmm.
And that kind of, if you will, human language without being language
Yeah.
has been so helpful for me as a human, I think. And I know we're getting really into the sort of the leather couch stuff, Tamla, but you know, I know I can share that with you. And
It's a fireside chat, dude. It's a fireside chat.
yeah,
No, but
so
again, yeah, the idea that you were able to capture those moments, and it's the little quiet moments I saw in the documentary, and then the little itty bitty 2 minute interview of you know, visiting your dad. It is those quiet moments that we as actors try to elicit in trying to tell a story, because even though we're saying particular words or not being able to talk, that we could still communicate energetically. And I think that's what the power of pieces like this do evidence, is that we're able to, and your story with your grandma when you were just her grandchild, is that you were still able to relate, to find humor, to teach, to learn, because we're all at the same level, because you and your grandmother didn't have the common language, but still you found other ways to bond and to bind together. So that's what's beautiful. In terms of, and moving on, because and I know you can interweave your own personal experience when caring for your father. My God, I know there were 7 stories originally in your doc, and in the cut that I saw, we only focused on 5. So it's the Alvarados, the Allens, the Ploufs, the Greers, and the Allens. And how, first of all, how did you find these families? Did you audition them? Did you send out a resume? How did you find them? Because, and the statistics are glaring, because you say at the top of the doc is that there's 16 million teenagers and caregivers across the nation. At the end of the film, it said 500,000 children are caring for military veterans. So what are those statistics? And but first of all, how did you find these families?
you know, Tamlin, after talking with a lot of, so in my volunteer work, I will often go and speak on caregiving or try to share my journey, because I think it's healthy for us to talk about that honor, right?
Mm-hmm.
That special time, which, you know, I think it's okay to say those words. And
Yes.
so I just reached out to the community. Yes, absolutely. And to reach out to the community, the friends that I had developed over that time, to say, help me, I want to talk about us. And so folks just kept on saying, yes, let me reach out to this person, that person. So the Alvarados who were in Long Beach,
Mm-hmm.
that was through a connection that I made through an organization in Texas, and Rosie Torres at Burn Pits 360. And then she said, oh, I've got a great family that are, I call them the love story, because the Alvarados
Yeah.
exhibit such
Yeah.
love conquers all.
Yeah. All you need is
And
love is on their Christmas tree whenever you
yeah,
film
that's
it.
right.
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
Wow, you must have been in the edit booth, I swear, Tamlin. I know I knew that, Tamlin, you know, you would be a if you worked in my business on the news side, you'd be a tough interview because I always know you know everything end to end.
I have some spell corrections at the credit roll at the end because you guys spelled Kauai Veterans Memorial wrong. It's KUA, and I go no, it's Kauai, it's KAU, and I go I gotta write the commission. But anyway, go ahead, please. I'm sorry for interrupting.
Yeah, no, that was it. I mean, we just reached out. It's one big family, and so
Yeah.
The goal was to bring in families that so my parents come from military families. They don't talk about it. I never really reflected on it. I didn't know that my uncles had served until they passed away, and then we saw the gun salutes.
Oh,
we saw the Purple
wow.
Hearts. Yeah, they didn't talk about it, and it's pretty
At
typical.
all.
Yeah, not really. No.
They didn't have it displayed on their walls and a little plaque or wow.
No.
Wow,
And
wow,
so
wow.
that was there's some sub themes in there to show that, because we have an African American family, a Latino American family, an Asian American family, a Native American family, a white European American family. And the idea was, I wasn't going to say, okay, here are all your boxes. What I was going to say is, see how we all happen to look different.
And we're all Americans, and we're all telling stories that have common threads. The idea that they have a schedule, they have the same pill packs, the medicines. The kids are giving the injections for the diabetic parents. It's the commonalities. It was the threads that you were able to really focus in on and say, this is happening all over the place. These are 5 special families that I'm taking the time in telling you they're as complete of story as I can, but this is happening all across America. So that's what I take away is the universality and the weight of it all, of how we can do better in taking care of those caregivers.
Exactly.
The idea, because I did notice that, because it was very subtle, checking off all the boxes, and to say that, my God, it was like it came after, not when I was watching it, because you seamlessly came through. There was one really great transition from, if I can remember correctly, from Jenna Plouffe to Kamaili when she's telling us where she's working at Follow charting services. It's like I thought they were the same girl. Because it was like their cadence was the same. There's a sense of caregiving and dignity and patience.
Yeah.
Oh my God,
Yeah.
Richard, how can we teach children patience? This was the secret sauce, right?
That was the point. You're right, Tamla, because I get tired of these generalizations, but this generation, that generation, I'm
Yeah. What did you say?
exactly. Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
I'm saying, well, I'm sorry, but look at these. Look at this 11-year-old. Look at this 13-year-old. This 15. This 18-year-old. This 21-year-old. This 26-year-old. You're going to tell me that? No. You'll watch these amazing people, and they're of all ages and all backgrounds. And the reason, as we were thinking about what the words are, and it was tough to figure out the title and to figure out what the subtitle was going to be, but I really do believe, after being on the road for 3 years, is that they really are the next greatest generation. They really are that which exhibit the values that, when Tom Brokaw, my good friend over
your
at
mentor,
NBC, exactly, said the greatest generation. I believe these are they. They're the same spirit, and I know when you think about caregiving, right, Tam, you'll think, oh, it's not a very happy topic, Richard. Well, yeah, okay, I get that, but the approach is that we needed to show joy despite difficulty.
Yeah.
That there was happiness despite this difficult. Because the one thing I as I lived through my caregiving journey, as well as, we laughed a lot, more than we ever had, about what it meant to be alive. Yeah. And these young kids are going through it right now, as opposed to old kids. I know that was redundant, but these particular protagonists that happen to be anywhere from 11 to 26 exhibit the very same. We can still laugh. We can still work through this, despite what you might think as, topic on what? You want to watch
I
that?
know, yeah. It's about, when we see the physicalities, the representations of, young Darren putting on the legs. It's like at the top of the film, it was like, oi,
Here
and
we
knowing
go.
he was here we go. But then knowing that you see just a few minutes later into the film is that, yeah, here's us Allens, welcome to Chili's. And I had no idea what that gesture was. I didn't know if that was specific to their restaurant that they love in Tennessee, or it was, I don't recognize that Chili's kind of advertisement, for the Chili's restaurants that I know. But it
Yeah.
was, again, and seeing Jenna, it's about the kids seeing their parents, not only as their parents, but as people who needed care, who needed help, who needed love. And they were able to find joy. Darren saying, I'm just so proud. My dad's cool. He's always
Yeah,
trying to make us
exactly.
happy. And she, on the flip side of that same conversation, she was saying, I'm just trying to make us all happy. And it was like, when push
Yeah.
comes to shove, if we strip away everything, that, all our technology and all our first world problems, whether or not I got my latte from Daniel because he went outside the house today, it's like, it's the idea of just being able to sit and cook a meal, um, and have a birthday cake, and
Yeah.
seeing Camille having that little 16-year-old birthday cake when they were vacationing in Florida, because I recognize that dining
Yeah.
room, their dining room. It's like those little meaningful moments are so full of meaning. And I think that's what
Yeah.
you were able to capture. And my next question to you is, because you're a journalist and you're trying to get the what happened, the why it happened, where it happened, when, and how. How did you get to the humanizing qualities of those? Why did you choose to shoot the little pug on Mr. Plouf's couch? Or why did you choose the artistic shots to make it a worthy documentary?
You- That is a really good question.
You're an artist, Richard Louis.
That's a different culture. And so I was learning along the way about, hey, this is not a 6-minute piece. It's not a
Mm-hmm.
2-minute piece.
Right.
And I think the thing that shocked me the most, but in the years that you and I have known each other, I've probably talked more personally about who I am as the years have gone on,
Right.
because of the caregiving.
Mm-hmm.
And so when I would share this with them, they would be very open, and I mean, vulnerable is a special word, right? It's a gift as well. It's also a difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
And so they were vulnerable, and I promised all of them that I would be there from the beginning to the end, that I would take their story and make sure it was fully told to the best of my ability, because I knew what they were giving me, because I shared with them, the difficulty of me having to care for my father when he couldn't, was pooping on the floor, and he would wander out the front door, and when he'd hurt himself and fall, and all these things, I'd share that with them because I knew they were going through with it, and they knew me and I knew them. So the little things of what caregiving means, which is super nuanced, it is, that idea of courage being quiet, and how do you show that to those who at that moment may not feel it. And it was often in the edit, as we've been editing it for, this is not new to anybody in this very experienced space that we're in today. But in the year and a half that we were editing it, it just was like, well, how do we pick that? And I love all 7 families. In fact, I had 2 more families that I got to
Yes.
7, and then in the end we got to 5. Is that was the approach, Tamlin, was that I was there, I was them, I am them. And so I was concerned about the way every shot was used, and the little things, like we
Mm-hmm.
used animation for a reason. And
Yes.
animation was there to take you to that moment when they were courageous, but in a way that you might say is that's not special. So it was our job to say, no, it is, because being an 11-year-old, as Rihanna does, protecting her father,
Mm-hmm.
and she also battles being on the spectrum,
Right.
but still is smiley, courageous, and stands up for her father in public. Because when they point to him,
Oh, to
she
him.
says,
Mhm.
yeah, she goes, don't do that.
Don't do
Turn
that.
around.
It's not nice. Yeah, turn
It's
around,
not
turn around.
nice.
Yeah, yeah.
And the beauty of that simplicity is what really, I get teary eyed every time during that scene.
Yeah, the idea that you used animation, because people say animation equals comic book form, it simplifies, but it also at the same time amplifies the universality because we can look at it and without any words we can see and tell you what's happening. That was the brilliance of using animation. I mean, in other I think in other films off the top of my head, we can say where they've used animated bits, but this was most effective because I don't know whose idea it was, but it's a black background with the white chalk sketches, and it felt like the characters, the persons that were illuminated were literally illuminated. They were people of light. They were people who saw beyond the darkness or the
Mm,
situation, especially when you see Jenna's family having to go
yeah.
from homelessness, going to hotel, going to the next hotel, and then going to the freaking food bank and say she went back to
Yeah.
volunteer.
Right.
To volunteer. How much more givingness does this particular individual have? And not just focusing on Jenna, but I know that has to happen with Rocio and Rihanna, with Camille and Rob Jr., with Darren and her mom, who's very good at money, knowing that she has to attack the VA and the IRS and the DOD because they're
Hmm.
not in the same place. It's like all these they're actually puzzle masters because they're all trying to piece these complex pieces in order to recompose the picture of life that they're living. And I thought that was again amazing, human. It was like I just wanted to tell the story, tell people to watch this movie because this movie has to be watched by everyone. And one thing I wanted to ask really quickly, because you say that they're military veterans, are all the parents of military service? Because
Yeah.
I wasn't sure about Rob Senior, and I
Yeah.
wasn't sure. Okay, okay, okay.
That was an interesting, that's a good point that you make, Talent, because it is about, because of my work with the Dole Foundation as a
Yeah,
ambassador for caregivers and military families, that's where it started. And
yeah.
the thing about that you and I can identify being Asian American Pacific Islander in the United States
And
is often,
military families and
and
military. I'm
and
military
military.
too. Yeah,
There you go. But you know that just when folks look at Tamlin Tomita or Richard Louis, they go, "Oh, that's an Asian person."
right.
And just like with military, oh, they're military. And so as we were going through telling their right, exactly, they live vibrant, multiple boxes,
Hmm.
multiple spaces at the same time, just as you and I do as people of color. And those other spaces sometimes we don't allow ourselves to see. And so I think that the question that you asked of were they all military families is an important one because they are, but
Hmm.
it shows how we're all in it, right? And it's not that's different and that's different. And they shared their stories in ways I think that do give us an insight to what military families live through. But it also shows how we are like them, even though I'm not from, I'm from a military family through my parents, but like
Right.
my father didn't serve, my mother didn't serve. But that was the idea, is to show this intersectionality, not only in terms of ethnicity, but intersectionality in the American experience.
The intersectionality, because that's what I was going to move on to, because I think it was Rob Greer Jr. who said that, in his experience in taking care of his mom and his father, that there were mostly the women. So
Yeah,
what do you see? And because I wanted to focus in on you being an Asian American male and
yeah.
seeing Kaleo Kapanui over in Waimea, Hawaii, taking care of his grandfather. Did you see yourself in young Kaleo, or do you see Kaleo, because again, when he says, it's about caring for my grandfather because that's what matters. I don't want to hear you talking about spamming my phone saying, what, you're not going to go to the party. It's like, when you going to come? It's like, I love that about, because he goes, don't make
Yeah,
fun of that because I don't like hearing that. And it was like,
yeah,
whoa. And that was kind of it was, I don't want to generalize, but that felt very masculine in
yeah,
terms of I'm taking care of my grandfather. Don't you make fun of me. Rather than the feminine, I'm taking care of my grandfather. So did you see yourself in young Kaleo, or do you see the difference in genders in taking care of our parents or our grandparents?
Yeah, it's a really good point, because when we were thinking through how the stories would arc, because Kamali is a powerful figure in
Yes.
this native, is she not? She's a powerful figure in this native Hawaiian family. She is really amazing.
Yeah.
And so is Kaleo. Kaleo, when we were there, he was happy. He's the youngest of
Yeah.
three. Kamali's the oldest. There's the middle son, and then there's Kaleo, who's 18. And I think what came out after we left was that when we're reviewing the tape, is what a courageous figure he was in his own way, when he could have taken on what might be seen as the non-stereotype role, which I'm going to care for a grandparent. I'm going to not hang out with my friends. I'm going to stay at home. I'm going to sleep next to my grandfather to make sure he's okay.
Mm-hmm.
And so that bubbled up into how to describe what it doesn't matter about gender. You just got to do it.
Yep.
And he exhibited that, I thought, idea in general. So did Rob Jr. and the Greer family. And me being a male caregiver, I don't know if I ever processed the fact that the stereotype is that it would be the women in the family. But I think I quickly moved to look at the data, and this might not surprise you, Tamlin, because you read everything, is 4 out of 10 family caregivers are male. 4 out of 10. We just don't talk about it.
Yep.
It's not like, when we hang out and we're talking, oh, by the way, I'm a caregiver, right? Where I think, and that's our dynamic. Like, well, we got to work through it. We got to pull down the walls to express that we do this, because that helps everybody. It's not only the stereotype of that it would be, as Rob says in the film, that's typically the women's job in this family. We let that conversation be out there. So as a 7-year-old feminist that I am, I'm learning. I'm about this tall, but I know that this is an important conversation to have, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if 4 out of 10 of us men and boys are doing this, we got to talk about it more and own it more.
Yes. And it's about that word that you used earlier. It's the ability to allow yourself and to allow others to be vulnerable, because it's about opening this where you might not have been used to opening it up, and receiving help, because that's what it is. It's about receiving help.
Yes.
And again, as Asian Americans, it's like to ask for help is one thing. That's hard enough, but to receive it is even more of a burden sometimes. So, and being male on top of it, it's about having, the support groups, the caregivers, gatherings when we can safely gather, in terms of talking about Zooming. And again, it was striking to see, how the contact, how much contact there is involved when you see, Rocio touching her, her husband's head, in the story when she said she witnessed him, in the shower, where she heard him in the shower. It's like just touching. It's like it's those human qualities about wanting to reach, and the power of that. And again, as men, I don't want to generalize again or stereotype. It's about talking about the nurturing. It's about caregiving. It's not a feminine quality. It's about doing the best and the right thing for the ones you love. And again, when you capture those things, those moments when Rob Jr. Greer was talking about, how it affected his personal life. When you said, do you have a personal life anymore? I want to ask that to you. Do you have as much of a personal life as you would? Because this is a vulnerable question.
Yeah.
And please, mind answering that.
Yeah, no, I think I do. And I think what's happened is the vulnerability helped, because I think I feel, and I, whatever, I don't know if I can express it, or do I feel more? Yes, I do. Do I think I'm more aware of what it means to care for other people and that responsibility that I'm fine with learning about? And the way I learned about it is by talking about it. And talking about it was like this documentary was to try to explore the way humans care for other humans. and in very subtle ways, in word selection or body movements or choices of what they do. And there's a lot of things we had to leave out, as you know, and that's typical of any movie, and that you leave stuff on the floor. But there's all these moments that I, in my brain, could pick up when people were caring for other people.
Yes.
I wanted to put it all in there, but we couldn't. And so, and then the ones that we couldn't do, that's why we wanted to do, again, going back to the animations, why we spent a lot of time and resource to work with another Southern Californian, Davey Liu. Go Davey. Yep, go Davey. One of the early Asian Americans in animation at Disney. And so that was that ability to show touch and expression and let all of us kind of take it in a different way. But yeah, it's allowed me, I think, to be, I still make a lot of mistakes, as you can probably imagine, because you know me. But I am, I think, trying to go to the next step in the way I deal with other people personally.
Yeah, and I'm hearing, you're exactly echoing as, all the millions of caregivers across the country, when they find themselves in this situation, is that echoing the words of young Darren, just goes, I'm just going to do the best I can. I don't know how I'm going to do it. And again, Jenna and Rocio, Camille, I'm just doing the best I can. I know that he's happy, when we're all together and just sitting together. It's like you're just trying to do the best you can and trying to find that routine, because it gives the person who needs care, as well as the caregiver, the routine, the structure. Is like, you need to take these pills at this time. You don't have to think about it. It's my responsibility. And again, we could structure our lives, how the kids have to go to school. Amazingly, I think it was Jenna who says about 40 hours a week of work, and being being the mother of a newborn. It's about structure. It's about routine. It's about those kind of boundaries that make us feel a little safer and make us have a sense of comfort in how we live. Going on to the next is there going to be a part 2? Or is there going to be a follow-up? Because, when you said at the top of the movie, you said 3 years, 7 lives. And knowing that, there are neighbors across the street who probably have those same situations with different kinds of ailments, or how do you, and I know you, Richard, you probably have tabs on what they're doing and where they're at, but could you give us at LAAPFF, a look-see as to how they're living right now in 2020, especially during pandemic?
Absolutely. And one of the things, Tamlin, just about the characters that you brought up, like Jenna and how strong she is, and Darren too, is that there's some vulnerabilities we didn't include in the film because they gave us so much, things that are the closest to any individual's deepest pains. And you brought up Jenna and Darren, and yeah, we had to make some choices not to put that in, though these are purposes and beliefs that I have very personally, that I felt the world needed to know, but we didn't put it in. But with the limits of what we had within that structure of a feature documentary, is that we had to leave it out, and they're even more strong, if I can say that, than we were able to put into the documentary. Jenna shared stories with me, Darren shared stories with me that young women across America often don't want to share, but we talked about it. And so my hat's off to them, if they were to be watching, if they're watching right now, that they are powerful individuals. Yes. If you see them around, please do reach out to them. So yeah, we do know where they're at. We were originally going to shoot a what was to be something in DC. We had to cancel it because of the pandemic in March, but we had just finished filming, so we wrapped, but we wanted to do this one last shot with all of them, and it ended up that we couldn't do it. Darren's now in college, by the way, and she's doing well. And
did she go to SCAD? Did she get to SCAD?
No, she didn't go to SCAD. I think she's in Tennessee Tech, if I remember properly. And I'm sorry, Darren, if I got the school wrong, because I know it's important. We did send her, as a gift to her, getting to college during pandemic. we sent over some, some of the swag from the school. Yeah. She is. So I talked to a lot of the parents after, and there was a lot of graduations and moving on in life, and that was the purpose of this. That life still goes on, right?
Right.
And
Right.
they're going to grow into amazing people. They're already
Mm-hmm.
amazing, but they will continue to be more and more amazing. And that was sort of the arc we wanted to show. And so now Darren, who is in college, has left home. Jenna, who now has a young son,
Mm-hmm.
her father is okay for
Okay.
now, but very fragile health wise. Rihanna also graduated and has moved on. The interesting thing about Kamali and Kaleo is, we love their family dearly. And this happens in caregiving situations, is that we lost touch with them. And we wish we could be there in the way that is right for them. And I hope that we've done right by their story, because they were absolutely amazing to us. But that happens because I know in a caregiving arc, things can get really busy and things change on a dime.
Right.
So they're all moving on. And I guess I would say is that, even the parents, as they look back, some of them who have viewed the documentary have said, I didn't know how amazing, or I now realize how amazing they are, or I didn't realize how amazing they are. And that to me is special, because,
it's
they're
right in
their
front
parents.
of their face. Yeah, it's right in front of their faces, and they're going, I didn't realize what a treasure of a child I have. And, despite all the, I don't want to get up, or why do I have, what is for dinner? Why do I have to do my homework? I took care of, again, it's those very, very recognizable modes of behavior that all us teenagers exhibit. And actually I still exhibit that. As you can see, I'm still very good. But again, it's about the little minute moments that, again, you were able to capture, as how to, they look at one another, they look and they go through that routine. When Camille is saying, you like your waffles with honey, huh? You like the honey, huh? Good. And it's just about that comfort, and it's the tone of voice. It doesn't matter what you say. It's and I saw it in your piece with your father when you say, it's Richard, your son. It's Richard, your son. And I saw that, and we recognize that. And, all of us are when we reach a certain age, we're going to encounter our parents at that point in life, or others whom we love as they advance in age. And we get to realize that it's just about the tone and our intent. And when you see that, and I think my burning question for me is, have you started, may I ask, as friend to
Yes,
friend, have
of
you
course.
filmed your journey with your father? Are we going to get to see that?
We did, and that was one
Okay.
of the choices, Tamlin, is that we originally was going to be, because this is what has driven me to do this, is
Yeah.
I'm sort of, who else is out there with me, right?
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of us, right? That there are, when we just look at, I'm not in this group, but if you look at millennial, Gen Y, and Gen Z caregivers, we're talking about over 20 million in America. And that is when I started to understand how big a community we are. I said, well, who else is going through it? And so I did start to, started filming at the beginning of this, and we have all of this. But at the end of the day, I didn't want it to be, as you understand in the space, about me. It's what drove me to do it, and why I volunteered for this for the last 4 years to do it outside of my job. And what maybe in the future, if because we also have 2 other great families that we are going to continue to film,
Yes.
that are going through some amazing journeys, that there will be something else in the future with them, and maybe me included. And it
Those
is.
and those are 2 families, with one family has 2 young boys and the other family has another boy. Yes?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct.
Yeah. Okay.
And one is, and they're both amazing, just amazing families. And so those 2 will continue to film. And then there's also my story, which we may or may not include in the follow-up. But it is what drove me to do this. And I know that, he wouldn't probably tell me this, like, Richard, I got Alzheimer's, because he would used to say to me, oh, I'm sorry, Richard, I forgot, I got Alzheimer's. And I used to love that, because he was accepting this tough time.
Right, right, right.
And
Go
yeah,
ahead. Go ahead.
which is strange, Tamlin, and not strange, but not typical. And so, you know, this film is for him, and for my mom who took care of him.
The idea of taking care. Did here it is.
Say
Did
it.
you accept? I know, because I'm all about feeling. I'm all about feeling. Did you go into it with that kind of open, or was it the I gotta be the responsible son. I gotta be, not just the good. I gotta be the responsible son, and I think that's why, when I hear Rob Senior call out to his boy, his son, he's a good son. He's a good son. It's like I can hear that, even though your father doesn't speak in that, again, that little 2 minute
Yeah.
thing when you're seeing. It's like how what kind of message, what kind of piece of sage advice at your young age, Mr. Louis, that you could give to us all, because we're all potential caregivers. I mean, how do we, prepare ourselves for making sure that we're able to care with the love and the patience and the humor that you do, as well as all the, as all the kids in your wonderful documentary do?
You know, nothing sage. I'll only say that, you know, I'm fully impressed with my brothers and my sister and my mother, and how we all came together to figure out very difficult decisions. You know, when the doctors are saying, "Hey, don't bother putting in the feeding tube. He's not going to last," and hearing it over and over and over again for two months. You know, you don't want to have to talk about that stuff. We made the right decision, and we did give him a feeding tube, and it gave him some very enriching months. And now are we keeping him too long? That's a tough conversation to have.
Yeah, and God, yeah, because and being so familiarized with the five families that I got to see twice last night, it's like knowing that they're going to have to come to that conclusion, and especially the young one, Jenna, with, I think, her sister that we didn't get to see a whole lot of. I think we saw her mostly in the animation. It's
That's
like
right.
she probably has to make those decisions on herself on behalf of her father. It's, again, recognizing the blessings and how lucky we are to, for those of us who have our families together to make those difficult decisions. Um, I guess another practical question that I'd like to see is that, or ask you, is that, are there resources that, us here in the United States and who are lucky enough to see this film, are there resources or organizations, I mean, because you work with Elizabeth Dole Foundation, that can help us when we come to these times in need?
No, unfortunately, it's a lot. It's very local, and so there's so many great organizations locally. There are lots of them, to answer your question.
Okay.
But it
Because
still feels.
I'm going to direct them all to you.
Well, we do have resources on the website for the film.
Yes.
That will lead you off to the organization. We're really approaching this as a jujitsu moment, in that we're going to take in all of this, energy, and go to the people that know it better. The only
Okay.
thing we did is we opened up a conversation, and the community that cares about this stuff, they're the ones that really know it. We definitely know that we are joining this as just one pawn, or not pawn, maybe not the word, but one team member of a
Yep.
very big team that's been doing so much. And so
Mhm.
I'd say, you know, all those who are in the caregiving journey, or don't know it's that, because
Mhm.
caregiving is a strange word. I mean,
Mhm. Mhm.
I now say it because, like, hi Tamlin, I'm a caregiver. I'm
I'm a
a caregiver of my
caregiver. Yeah.
father. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's, but
Yeah.
it's not a, it's not like I'm a teacher, I'm a garbage man. These are not typical titles that we take on. So for those in the caregiving space, there's a lot of resource out there, but it is difficult. But there's a lot of embracing. You know, when I go to events, I never hugged so many people, cried so much, and laughed so much. And I'm serious. You know, you do a lot
No,
of
no,
events,
no.
Tamlin.
Yeah. Yeah,
But
I see
this
you at
is
so many events, and it's I can only imagine what it's like to be at these events where you're able to disseminate and share your experience and share those answers that people are seeking, because we do foresee that the caregiving community is going to grow exponentially as we as Americans living in the greatest country in the world have life expectancies that are far beyond others.
yeah.
And knowing that, the nuclear families are still more predominant here, but that we have multi-generational families, that we still have, aunts and uncles, grandfathers, grandparents, as well as our moms and dads, as well as our children who might be in need,
Yeah.
especially if they're young children, like Chaz Allen was pretty young when he was hit. We're winding down, it looks like, but I guess the idea is one question is, for those of the audience who get to see this movie, you mentioned that there is a website. Can you tell us about what? Because I checked on it and I didn't go through it all because I was going, oh, I want to watch this part. I want to watch this again.
Right.
But it's skyblossom.org, is it not?
It's skyblossom.org or .com.
Okay.
And on November 11th is when we're going to have an event at the Kennedy Center, the first ever drive-in event. And then
What?
also, yeah, first ever. And then in addition to that same night in 50 states, we will have one night only in every state in the union will be a showing of the film as well. And it's a great, we talk about the community, right? And this
Yeah.
is community partners like Universal Pictures and Deluxe and AMC Theaters that have said, this is an important time, and we need to lean in the small ways that we can. And this is an important idea as we live through a viral pandemic and a racial pandemic on top of each other, that this is the right kind of message that we want to put out there, that it's okay to care for other people, no matter what your background is. And people have had to do that now because of those two pandemics overlapping each other at the same time. And that's what's happening on November 11th. And I thank, of course, all the partners for deciding to do that. And then after that, the Laemmle, as David was saying earlier, Greg has been fantastic over there in terms of working with us. We know that it's difficult right now to open theaters. We're going to do our run there with Greg. And unfortunately, because of the things that we all understand is happening, we are still going to do it, but we're going to do it virtually with the Laemmle. And they've been great. Again, the community, right? This is a first timer. I'm kind of putting my toe in and realizing how big this world is, but how kind it is at the same time.
Okay, that was my last question, and you already hit it. Sorry, Dave, I'm just going to ask him one more time. So are you going to continue to be a filmmaker? Richard Louis, journalist extraordinaire?
I don't know. I got to get this one done. And if I'll talk to David after, because he's the one that is he's the one that's been kind of telling me, he's been giving me lessons. He's been dropping dimes, put it that way. I'm learning.
But again, looking at the credits of your film, and everybody, it's a wonderful documentary. And if you get to see it here at VC's Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival, you have your chance here, and I believe it's going to be on the chat or on the link but it's available for tonight's screening as well as November 11th, as Richard had always said. But in being, again, shouting out to all the people that you and I, Richard, know, Daphne Kwok and Naomi, Takuyan Underwood, AARP, Donald Young, Cam. Oh my God, it was like, hey, this is another family affair. And I'm just so glad that Richard Louis is in the filmmaking world too, because he's not just going to be limited to reading the words on the box. He's just going to be actually filming and collecting these personal human moments that make an incredible and touching story such as Sky Blossom. So I just want to thank you for your time and for your effort, and giving you the flow of energy to make sure that this film does as well as it should do, and all the blessings to you, because you are a wonderful filmmaker, even though if you didn't know it.
Tamlin, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I can't thank you enough for doing this. And you're so right. It's people like Sue Van and Daphne Kwok and Don Young and Jean
Chen. Yeah. I saw all those names. It's like, oh my God, yeah.
They're the ones that have been so kind along the way. And so, and you, today,
Well,
spending time to do this. Thank you so much.
no. David, do you want to take it away? Or do you want to interject and talk as our kuya?
Yes, sure. I mean, it's like what we said at the beginning. This is really a community, right? It's a community of people that are coming together. Because I know it was Don and Jean that said, "Hey, Richard Louis has this film. Would you take a look at it?" And I was just like you. I think there were 7 people that they were following, but it's just it's such an important time, and there's a number of us, like you were saying, that either have been caregivers or will be experiencing this, and then the thing that blew me away was this newer generation of, as we call it in the film, millennials, who have taken up that torch to be that caregiver. And it's really, it's a special thing to be a caregiver, as I think a lot of us do know. And then I was inspired also by Richard's story, and with the story with his father. I mean, and like you said, I was overhearing what you had said, that at some point you have to ask yourself that question, especially like, is this the time? And that's always, I've been there 2 or 3, 4 times, and it's always been, how do you make that decision? And there's not a bad decision or wrong decision for people who are going through it. It's just really, what's going to be most important for the person that you're caring for? Is this the quality of life that they would really want to have, that, both for you? So I applaud, Richard's first effort as a filmmaker. We could see
It's amazing. First time. It's amazing. Amaze balls.
I mean, so I think there's going to be more. I don't think this is going to be Richard, did you have the bug now to make more documentaries?
I do, because it's a special space, but like I was saying, David, I want to make it past this first to see what I still have a lot to learn, put it that way.
No, and that's a good thing. Like, as just to repeat what Tamlin said, for those of you who are in the chat and want to watch it now, because you're going to see it before everybody else, it's at the film festival. If you look in the chat, there is a link to the LA Asian Pacific Film Festival special screening. It's opening at the Lemley Virtual Cinema here in LA, but it's all over the US for people who want to see it, if you want to share it with them. That'll be opening next Friday in that space. And then can you just talk about the 50, one night only, 50 states, 50 screens? Because I think that's something that everybody can, across the country, can go into.
Yeah, and thank you so much for premiering it here, David, as well, with the festival. And you have been very gracious from day one in our conversations, and I can't say too much more, but super gracious. Just thank you. And the 50 states is because we really do believe that this is something that is local. And so we were pushing for a long time. Like these are all personal stories, right? Tamlin and David, we're talking about something very personal. And so to be able to see it locally was really important to me, with respect to our federal, state, local, and organizational rules for safety, of course. And we wanted to make sure that everybody could be part of this experience, that caring for other people is an important thing. It may be worth to consider to go to see it. So yes, in every single state on November 11th, if you go to the website, you can sign up for free tickets, thanks to our community partners, and go see it. Physically distanced, based on the state, 25 or 40%. A couple states we have drive-ins on the 11th, and all together at the same time, on the same night, we will all be able to experience this. And if you want to meet one of the families, the Alvarados, they will be going. I talked to Brian earlier today. He will be at the showing in Southern California in the OC. If you wanted to,
in Long Beach. Right.
Yeah.
In OC. Okay.
Well, actually,
so again,
the showing's going to be in the OC.
Okay, so just to make sure again for the audience members, if they're not going to catch it here, I encourage everybody to watch it here at the LA Pacific Film Festival. Also on November 11th to watch it. If you go to skyblossom.com or skyblossom.org and sign up for those free tickets on November 11th. The time is pertaining to each time zone, I'm sure, but again, thank you, Richard. I'm done. I love you. I'm just so glad that you're entering our filmmaking world. Thank you, David. I'm going to give it back to you, and congratulations to a successful virtual film festival by Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. So thank you so very much. Thank you, Richard. Go, David.
Okay, let me bring on Francis Culato,
Thank
who's the
you.
executive director for the Los Angeles Asian Pacific Film Festival. Francis, if you're there, can you
Hey.
turn on your
Yeah, I'm here. Can you guys see me?
Yes.
David, just thank you for everything. I just really this is sort of our last closing night, and really, David, thank you for the last not just 37 days, but it feels like the last 37 years. But thank you to you, Vince, William, and everything for what you're all doing. Richard, thank you for being with us. I think all of us saw ourselves and our families in the film. I'm from Long Beach too, so once I saw the Long Beach family, I was like, hey, I know where that is. And you know, really just happy just to have this as part of our slate of films of caregiving, of giving care and caring for each other. And speaking for caring for each other, thank you, Tamlin, the host with the most heart that we know. It never amazes me. Every time I watch you, I also cry in the back here. And so thank you for being with us. And in so many ways, you're the guardian of our community, especially here in Little Tokyo, but in communities around the country, and especially during COVID and this upcoming election. You've been very busy. So thank you for your time today.
Vote!
We love you, Tamlin. Thank you all, folks. Again, this film is available today and tomorrow. And if you enjoy the festival lineup, please consider donating to Visual Communication. This is our 50th anniversary year to sustain our year-round operations. And again, for more recent updates on the festival, please visit festivalvisamedia.org, and don't forget to tag us for hashtag LAAPFF 2020. Please stay tuned for our next C3 Converse Artist Conversation with Kahua Kai, Journey to Merry Monarch. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, you guys. Thanks,
Thank
Richard.
you, Richard.
Thanks so much, Tamlin. Thanks, David.
Thank
See ya.
you.